My parents wanted to take my car and give it to my brother, a car I paid for with my own money. I refused, and what they did next was something I could have never imagined. My name is Haley Everin, and it was just a normal party for my brother's birthday. Then came the moment. The speech. My dad, one hand on Mason's shoulder, the other raised like a pastor mid-sermon. "We wanted to give you something special," he said, voice thick with pride. "Something that shows you how much we believe in you, son." And then, he pointed, to my car. Not just any car. A black Audi S5 Sportback. My dream car. Paid for in full after years of consulting gigs. Midnight grind, canceled vacations. No one had asked me. No one had hinted. It was mine. And still, they said it like a done deal. A family heirloom being passed down with honor. Mason's mouth dropped open in awe, already halfway to the driveway. The crowd applauded. Someone even whistled. I didn't move. Not a word. Not a sound. Just stood there. Then Mom's voice cut through the air like a blade, high and sweet. "Haley, you left the keys on the hallway table. Go grab them, honey." That's when the world tilted. Every eye turned toward me, all smiling, all assuming I'd fall in line. When I didn't move, confusion crept in. Mason's excitement faltered. My mother's tone sharpened. "Haley, don't ruin the moment. We've talked about this." "No. You talked. You assumed." My dad's jaw tightened. His voice dropped, but the anger was plain. "Don't be selfish. It's just a car." Just a car? That machine had been my sanctuary. The only space that belonged entirely to me. The thing I bought when I finally escaped their grip. When I proved I wasn't just the smart one who stayed quiet and kept the lights on while Mason flunked another semester. I looked at Mason, who had the audacity to look embarrassed, like I was making this awkward. And in that moment, something inside me didn't explode. It stilled. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I set the plate down on a lawn chair, turned, and walked. I heard Mom's hiss. "Haley, where are you going?" Followed by Dad's mutter about how ungrateful I was. Mason called after me, all attitude. "It's just a car, Haley." But I didn't stop. Because suddenly, it wasn't about the car. It was about every favor disguised as duty. Every tuition check I paid for Mason. Every time they called me to help with the mortgage, spot a medical bill, take a week off, and drive Dad to appointments. Every single sacrifice swallowed whole and forgotten. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a declaration. I wasn't family, I was a fund. And I'd finally heard it loud and clear, in surround sound, with party decorations. The gate clicked behind me. I didn't even flinch. The sun was still out, kids were still running around the yard, and I could hear the music swelling again behind me, like nothing had happened. But something had. Something big. They just didn't know it yet. And by the time they did, I wouldn't be the quiet one anymore. You'd think anger would come crashing in, some tidal wave of fury. But instead, what I felt when I got back to my apartment was precision. I slipped off my shoes, locked the door behind me, and walked to the kitchen like I had a list to follow. My heels clicked against the tile. My breath stayed steady. The silence here wasn't awkward or loud. It was clean. Mine. I didn't cry. Didn't pace. Just opened the cupboard, pulled down the black tin box, tucked behind a stack of unused birthday candles, and set it on the table. Inside, my spreadsheet. Printed. Annotated. Highlighted. Years of numbers. Transfers. Zelle receipts. Checks I'd written and never gotten back. Little notes I jotted down next to each transaction. At first out of duty, later out of disbelief. I unfolded the pages like a surgeon prepping for a long, slow operation. Let's see. July 14th, 2019. Mason's tuition shortfall, $2,300. November 3rd, 2020. Dad's dental surgery, $3,860. March 22nd, 2021. Mom forgot the tax deadline, $1,400. December 10th, 2022. Christmas flights for the family. All charged to me, $2,145. I paused on that one. I remembered how they'd called me the generous one at dinner. Mom toasted me like I was some benevolent sponsor. And I'd smiled. Because back then, I still thought love was measured in sacrifice. By the time I hit the end of the list, my pen hovered over a rough total. The ink trembled slightly, not from nerves, just from how long I'd been holding the pen. $81,972.43. That number didn't scream. It didn't accuse. It just sat there, quietly damning. I leaned back in the chair, stretching my neck. The apartment was still. No music. No traffic outside. Just the soft hum of the fridge. Funny, isn't it? The way people say, family is everything. But somehow, I had become the family's everything. The bank. The planner. The fixer. All off the record. There were no birthday toasts for Haley. No surprises for me, unless you counted being blindsided with a public demand to surrender my independence like it was some party favor. The spreadsheet caught the light from the kitchen lamp. I stared at it for a while, not really reading anymore, just seeing it for what it was. Evidence. This wasn't resentment. It wasn't revenge. It was inventory. I got up, made tea. Earl Grey. No sugar. While the kettle boiled, I pinned the spreadsheet to my corkboard, right next to my old college diploma and a postcard from New Mexico I'd always meant to frame. Then I opened my laptop and started a new folder, Control, Phase 1. Not a diary, not a manifesto, just a new project, like all the other ones I'd managed without help. No declarations, no late-night calls to explain what they did wrong. They would figure it out soon enough. Or they wouldn't. Either way, I wasn't part of the equation anymore. And the silence I once hated? Now it sounded like power. There was this painting I used to keep above my desk. Sunset over a lake, brushstrokes thick and wild like the sky was on fire. I bought it during my first consulting year. It cost more than I should have spent back then. But I remember standing in that tiny art gallery and just needing it. Not wanting. Needing. It reminded me of stillness. Of beauty I didn't owe anyone. And I let it go. Funny how some memories don't come with fanfare. They just float in while you're doing something ordinary, like folding laundry. That's when it hit me again, how I sold it 2 winters ago to cover Dad's second round of physical therapy. He'd injured his back trying to shovel the neighbor's driveway. Mom called me in a panic. "We can't afford the treatment, Haley," she said, voice trembling, like it was my fault they didn't have savings. I didn't hesitate. I listed the painting that same night. Gone within 3 days. He got better. That part was good. But they never mentioned it again. Not once. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Like my help was expected. Like that painting had never existed in the first place. I guess I remembered it now because I'd just walked past the space where it used to hang. The wall's still bare. I never replaced it. At the time, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. It was just art. I could always buy another one. But I never did. And that wall? It became a kind of quiet monument. Not to generosity. To erasure. It's strange, isn't it? The way you can give parts of yourself away, so many times, that eventually you don't even recognize what's missing. You forget to mourn the pieces you let go of. That night, I stood in front of the empty wall, a little longer than usual. I could still picture the painting, the blazing orange against navy blue, the way the lake shimmered with each streak of gold. It was chaotic and peaceful at once. And it was mine. I sat down at my desk, pulled open an old photo album I kept in the drawer. There it was, snapped years ago during a video call. Me laughing in front of that painting, half a coffee cup in hand, sun pouring through the window. Back when I thought being useful was the same as being loved. I closed the album slowly, pressing my palm against the cover. They didn't take the painting from me. I gave it away. That's the part that stung the most. Because now, looking back, I realized I'd handed over far more than money or art. I gave them permission. Every time I said yes, every time I swallowed my pride and stepped up, I taught them how little I valued my own boundaries. But that's over now. I turned off the lamp. The room fell into soft shadows. No one noticed when the painting disappeared, just like no one noticed the girl who used to stand in front of it, until she started saying no, let them feel the quiet. I did, for years. And somehow I survived. The night I posted the photo, I didn't plan it. It wasn't some grand strategy, no spreadsheet, no vengeance playlist humming in the background. Just me, sitting in my apartment, staring at my phone like it held the key to something I couldn't name. Outside the window, the city buzzed like it always did. Late-night sirens, A couple arguing down the hall, the hum of a life I'd kept separate from them for years. I had lit a candle, set the table for one, made myself dinner I actually enjoyed. Rosemary chicken, roasted carrots, a glass of red wine. And then I glanced at the car parked just below the window. Sleek, clean, still mine. A soft smile tugged at the edge of my mouth. I walked out onto the balcony, the plate in my hands, and snapped the photo. The car gleamed beneath the streetlight like something sacred. I didn't pose. I didn't filter. Just a simple caption. Sometimes the gift is saying no. I hit post, and I walked away. You ever do something quiet that lands like thunder? By the time I'd rinsed my plate and turned off the kitchen light, my phone was already buzzing. A few likes, then a few dozen. Then comments, some laughing, some confused, others downright furious. A couple people thought I was being petty. A few thought it was empowering. And a surprising number of women messaged me directly. Strangers, really. Writing things like, "This hit deep. I didn't even know I needed to see this. Thank you for reminding me it's okay to set the table for myself." But what I didn't expect, what made me pause, was how fast it spread. Someone shared it with a quote about family boundaries. Then someone else added it to a thread about financial abuse. Then a lifestyle blogger reposted it with the tag, #GenerationAllKnow. I stared at the screen, watching my quiet moment ripple outward like a stone dropped in still water. It felt surreal. For once, I wasn't being discussed in whispers at a family dinner. I wasn't being dissected over group texts or painted as the difficult one for refusing to go along. I was just there, visible, on my terms. It wasn't revenge, it was presence. And the irony? I hadn't said a word to my family since the birthday, but I knew. I knew. They'd seen it. Mom never could resist a social media scroll after her second glass of wine. Mason's girlfriend followed me. Dad might have needed help finding the post, but someone always made sure he heard what mattered. So I didn't have to explain myself. They could sit in the same silence I'd been given for years. And maybe now, it would echo. The call came 2 days after the post went up. I let it ring twice before answering. Not because I hesitated, but because I wanted to make sure I picked it up with a clear voice and a steady hand. Mason's name flashed on the screen, same contact photo from years ago. Him and Dad at some minor league game, both grinning, wearing matching ball caps I'd bought for Father's Day. "Haley," he said, before I could even say hello. Just my name, like it meant something heavier now. There was noise behind him. Traffic, maybe wind. He sounded like he'd stepped out just to make the call in private. "Hey," I said, calm, silence. Then, "You really had to make a scene?" I leaned back on the couch, pulled the blanket over my legs. It wasn't a scene. "You posted a photo in front of the car and basically told the whole world I begged for it. You made me look pathetic." I waited a beat. "Did you beg for it?" "That's not the point, Haley." His voice was tight now, edged with that old entitlement he used like a crutch. "You knew what people would think. Everyone's acting like I'm some spoiled brat, like I asked you to gift me your car. I didn't even know about it until the party." I stayed quiet, not because I didn't have thoughts, but because I'd learned silence could be its own kind of power. "I never asked for anything," he continued. "Mom and Dad were the ones who planned it. You never stopped them." He didn't respond right away. I could practically hear him searching for something to throw back. But I didn't give him the space. Instead, I said it simply, "You're not entitled to anything I earn." The line went dead silent, not even his breathing. "You know how much I've given," I added. "You know how many times I've said yes, just to keep the peace. And you never once said thank you." "That's not fair," he said finally, softer now. "You think I don't appreciate you?" I let out the kind of breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "I don't think you think of me at all, unless there's a deadline or a crisis." "Wow," he muttered. "So this is about everything now?" "No," I said. "This is about boundaries." Another pause. This one longer, like he was finally absorbing the weight of my words. Not just the content, but the calm behind them. He used to rely on me getting upset, on me folding after the third apology, or the right shade of guilt. But this version of me? I wasn't upset. I was done. I didn't mean to make you look bad, I said. But if the truth does that, maybe it's not the post that's the problem. He didn't argue. Just a quiet, okay. Not acceptance, just retreat. Then a click. The call ended. I stared at the screen for a while after. No anger. No fire. Just a strange kind of quiet peace. Like closing a door you didn't realize was letting in a draft for years. The email came from someone I didn't know. Subject line, "Your story matters." I almost deleted it. I assumed it was spam, or maybe some influencer trying to ride the ripple of my post. But something about the wording caught my eye. Simple. Direct. Not flashy. Inside was a short message. "Hi, Haley. I host a podcast on women who quietly change the rules. Not through fights or breakdowns, but through calm, deliberate steps toward freedom. Your post spoke volumes. I'd love to have you on for a short conversation, even if you don't say much. Sometimes, silence says more than noise. Let me know. No pressure. Marla." I sat with that message longer than I expected. I wasn't sure if I wanted to speak. Not because I was afraid, just unsure of what I'd even say. I wasn't trying to start a movement. I wasn't looking for attention. But something about the way she phrased it made me feel seen. Women who change the rules. That felt like the first time someone named what I'd done. So I wrote back. 2 days later, I was sitting in a studio loft. Exposed brick, a warm mug of tea in my hand, headphones slipped gently over my ears. Marla sat across from me, kind eyes, easy smile, and a posture that said, "This is your pace, not mine." "We don't need a grand speech," she said, adjusting the mic. "We just want to hear what it felt like," so I told her. Not everything, just the shape of things. I spoke about growing up in a house where quiet people were expected to be useful, where love was measured by how quickly you solved other people's problems. I spoke about the shift, how saying no didn't feel loud or angry. It felt like stepping into a room I'd never been allowed in before, a room with my name on the door. And when she asked what advice I'd give someone still stuck in that role, I said, "Stop being your family's emotional accountant." She blinked, then smiled, like I'd just handed her a quote she'd be repeating all season. "You can balance the books your whole life," I said. "Track what you give, what they take, what no one remembers. But eventually, you realize you don't owe them perfect math." I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was just here. Marla closed out the interview with a gentle thank you. "Some people make noise to be heard," she said. "You made space." Later that night, the episode went live. I didn't promote it. But it found its way into inboxes, into comments, into quiet group chats filled with women who'd carried the weight of invisible expectations for far too long. The messages came slowly. One woman wrote, "I've been my mom's emergency contact for 15 years. I never thought about what that meant until now." Another, "I thought being quiet meant I was weak. You made it feel like strength." I didn't reply to most of them. I didn't need to. I just sat there, in my apartment, wrapped in a blanket, the sound of my own voice still playing in the background. And for once, I didn't cringe. I sounded like me. Maybe not the version they all remembered, but the one I'd finally started to become. I knew the knock was him before I opened the door. It wasn't frantic or loud. Just one of those steady, almost polite knocks, like someone trying not to wake a baby. When I looked through the peephole, I had to pause, because there he was, my father. No fanfare, no phone call warning, just him, standing in the hallway in his Sunday jacket, eyes down like he'd gotten lost and ended up at my door by mistake. I opened it slowly. He looked up, didn't smile. "Hey, Haley," he said. His voice wasn't cold, wasn't warm either, just tired. "Hey," I said. For a moment, neither of us moved. Just the sound of the elevator doors closing behind him. He glanced past me into the apartment, like he was waiting for permission. I stepped aside. "Don't worry," he said, walking in without touching anything. "I'm not here to argue." That was new. He stood near the window, looking out at the skyline like he didn't quite know what to do with his hands. "Your mother misses you," he said finally. I nodded once. "Okay. She's not sleeping well. Keeps rewatching that birthday video." "Ah." So they had seen it. The one that leaked a few days ago. Someone had filmed the moment they tried to hand my car over to Mason, egg throwing and all. It made its rounds fast. Sympathy followed even faster. He rubbed a hand over his jaw, still not facing me. She said she wrote you. She did. A pause. Then, quieter. Did you read it? No. He turned then, just a little. Why not? I met his eyes. Calm. Steady. Because I don't miss being used. That landed. He flinched. Not dramatically, just enough for me to see it. Like someone absorbing a bruise that had taken too long to show up. I don't think we realized, he started. You didn't, I said. That's the point. The silence between us stretched. He looked older now. Not just aged. Shrunk. Somehow. Like all the scaffolding that held him up had rusted quietly, and now he was feeling the weight. I thought we were helping, he said, voice hoarse. You were helping yourselves, I said. You just liked that I made it easy. He closed his eyes for a second. Like maybe, for once, he couldn't argue. I didn't offer him a seat. He didn't ask. He just nodded slowly, hands in his coat pockets. Well, he said. That's all I came to say. I walked him to the door. And just before stepping out, he turned again. Meeting my gaze was something that looked almost like grief. You were always the one who didn't need anything. I guess we mistook that for permission. I didn't reply. Because maybe part of me had done the same. The door clicked shut behind him. No yelling, no tears. Just a strange, gentle quiet. The kind that comes after a wound has been cleaned, still sore, but no longer hidden. It started with a letter. One of those thin white envelopes that doesn't look like much until you see the return address. Department of Revenue. I opened it half distracted, coffee in one hand, thinking maybe it was just routine, a clerical check, a mismatch in some old record. But the second I read the words Federal Audit and Loan in your name, the mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. I didn't even move to pick it up. Just stood there, heart racing, rereading the letter over and over like the ink might change if I blinked enough. Apparently, a $78,000 business loan had been opened 3 years ago under my name. 3 years ago. I was still helping. Still signing whatever forms they asked me to. Still assuming trust was currency I could afford to lose. The phone call started next. The bank. A tax agent. A voicemail from a woman named Trina who cheerfully informed me they'd be reviewing my assets for clarity. Clarity. I laughed. Cold and short. There was no clarity. Only betrayal. I pulled every file from my cabinet, scanning for signatures, statements, anything with my name on it. Somewhere in the chaos, I found it. A photocopy of a loan document from 2020. There it was, scribbled at the bottom, my name. But the handwriting wasn't mine. It was Mom's. She'd forged it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. I wasn't asking anymore. 2 days later, I sat across from a corporate fraud specialist in a sleek office downtown. She flipped through the files I brought, tapping the corner of the forged signature with one perfectly manicured nail. They're not even subtle, she muttered. Do you know who submitted the application? I nodded. My mother. The lawyer arched a brow. Do you want to press charges? I didn't answer immediately. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about record. I wanted it on paper. The same way they'd kept me on file for every emergency, every convenience, every debt they couldn't carry. I wanted the ledger to finally balance. I want full removal of liability, I said. I want my credit restored. I want them nowhere near my name again. She smiled. That we can do. While she worked the paperwork, I sat quietly, staring at the city beyond the glass wall. Everything moved in straight lines out there. Cars, trains, people with places to be. And for the first time, I didn't feel behind. I felt parallel, moving beside them, no longer buried under someone else's weight. Back home, I swept up the broken coffee mug, tossed the shards into the trash, one careful scoop at a time. It was the only thing I allowed myself to break that day. Everything else was being rebuilt. But this time, without forged names or silent debts. Just mine. All mine. It showed up in my inbox like a ghost from a life I'd already buried. No subject line. No message body. Just a video file titled, Mason BD, _clip.mp4. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity. It's persistent. So I clicked. The footage was shaky, vertical, clearly shot from someone's phone. Probably one of the guests I didn't recognize. The camera swung toward the backyard, the balloons, the grill, my father mid-speech. And there I was, standing still in the corner, holding a paper plate, the smile already gone from my face. It played out exactly as I remembered it. My mother's too sweet voice. My father's grand gesture. Mason's boyish excitement as he reached toward the driveway. The clapping. Then the shift. The silence as I didn't move. Mom's voice, sharpening. Dad's frustration rising. And Mason, loudest of all, yelling across the yard. "It's just a car, Haley." The camera zoomed in as I put my plate down and turned to leave. I didn't say a word. I didn't slam a door. I didn't cry. I just walked away. The video ended there. No music, no edits, just raw, uncomfortable reality. At first, I thought it would fade, get lost in the shuffle of trending topics. But it didn't. Someone posted it to TikTok with the caption, "When the golden child gets everything until the scapegoat says no." It took off like wildfire. Within hours, the internet had a name for it. Hashtag the Haley Walk. Comment sections overflowed. Her silence was louder than anything they said. This is what breaking generational cycles looks like. Protect Haley at all costs. Imagine expecting a luxury car from your sister and then yelling at her when she doesn't just hand it over. That wasn't a birthday party. That was an ambush. I didn't reply. Didn't like. Didn't repost. But I read every word. People weren't just watching. They were seeing. And for once, the story wasn't being told for me. It was being told through me. I received dozens of messages, some from strangers, some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A girl I barely knew from college wrote, "I never forgot how kind you were to me when I was going through it. Seeing this? It makes so much sense now." Even old colleagues chimed in. "We always knew you carried more than your share." But the one message that stayed with me came from someone unexpected. A woman named Lorna. She simply wrote, "I'm 61. I was Haley. Took me 40 years to learn the word enough. You learned it younger. I'm proud of you." I read it twice, then 3 more times. It didn't undo what happened, but it softened something I hadn't realized was still sharp. Not everything had to hurt to be true. And sometimes, the world only wakes up when it's forced to replay the moment you stopped playing along. It came in a cream-colored envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in my mother's familiar script, elegant and slightly tilted, like she'd taken her time. Inside was a letter, folded twice. No perfume. No decoration. Just ink on paper, and more silence than I expected. I didn't read it. Not right away. I sat with it in my lap for a while, letting my fingers trace the crease. The paper was soft, stationery she used for special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, apologies apparently. I knew what it would say. I could hear the voice in my head already. "We didn't know. We never meant to hurt you. You were always so capable. We thought you didn't mind." I'd heard versions of those words before, but this one came differently. Not as a phone call layered in tension, not in the middle of a fight. It came quiet, private, late. I unfolded the letter halfway, then paused. A single sentence caught my eye, centered on the page like it had been written last, like she wasn't sure it belonged there. "We didn't know what we were doing." That was it. No excuses, no spin, just a sentence soaked in regret. And that's the part that broke me, if I'm honest. Not in a way that made me cry or collapse. It broke me open, like a shell I'd outgrown. I folded the letter back along the same lines. Neatly, carefully. I didn't tear it, didn't throw it away. I just placed it in the drawer beside my bed, where I keep old photos and quiet things I don't always want to explain. Because forgiveness doesn't have to be loud either. Sometimes, the most honest thing you can say is nothing at all. And maybe, for the first time in my life, silence belonged to me. No one expected me to show up. The reunion had been planned without me, just like every family gathering since the car, the post, the podcast, the video. I wasn't cut off. I was just excluded, quietly, conveniently, which was fine. Until it wasn't. I didn't RSVP, didn't call. I just showed up. The venue was familiar, a local country club rented out for the evening. Tablecloths, in cream and gold. Buffet trays steaming near the windows. Laughter carrying across the room in waves. I paused at the entrance. People were mid-conversation, drinks in hand, passing plates of catered shrimp skewers like nothing in the world had changed. But it had. And they saw it the moment I stepped inside. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone dropped a fork. Mason's jaw froze mid-laugh. My mother's eyes widened. And my father, he just stared like the past 6 months had walked in wearing heels. I wasn't overdressed. Black dress, hair up, calm. I didn't smile. Didn't rush to hug anyone. Didn't explain. I moved slowly through the room, past second cousins and childhood neighbors and whatever new friends they'd picked up along the way. Every step felt like a truth they couldn't look away from. Some tried to speak. I didn't stop. Because this wasn't about catching up. This was about letting them feel what silence looked like when it stood on its own 2 feet. I reached the main table, where Mason was seated with my parents, half a birthday cake already sliced, the frosting too bright to feel real. I placed a single item on the tablecloth beside the untouched wine glass near my mother's hand. A business card. Simple. Matte black. Gold lettering. Haley Everin, Principal Consultant, Everin Strategy and Ethics. And beneath that, one quiet line in small print. Not available for personal withdrawals. No one spoke. I didn't need them to. Because this was never about a speech. Or forgiveness. Or spectacle. It was about clarity. And I had finally become mine. I turned. Walked the length of the room without looking back. The door opened easily. The air outside was cool. Sharp. Clean. And for the first time in years, I wasn't leaving empty. I wasn't leaving wounded. I was just leaving. And that was the real gift. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the one who kept the peace until you couldn't anymore? Was there a moment when you finally said, enough? Drop your story in the comments below. You never know who might read it and feel a little less alone. And if this story hit you somewhere deep, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and still leave them speechless.